Walter Pollard, welcome to the Modern Sales Management Podcast.
Josh, great to be on today. I really appreciate you inviting me.
So Walter, how long have we known each other? And in several
gosh.
different iterations of our careers.
Iterations, right, in our spans of our life. Well, I would say at the very least, probably for 7-8 years now. Yeah. Back in the early days, I think we met, if I'm correct, back in the early days when you lived in Washington, D.C., and Mark and Sharon and myself were starting up the HubSpot Washington, D.C. user group. And we formed a relationship and bond there, and it's grown since.
And since then, since kind of meeting in the HubSpot world and running the DC user group, you've kind of moved on to working really closely and being one of the key people in the Sales Enablement Society, where you were exposed to, the cutting edge of running sales teams and the technology and the cultural shifts. Being exposed to so many companies who were focused on that, what were kind of some of the big trends and takeaways you got from your experience with the Sales Enablement Society?
Yeah, so I would say that sales enablement, the industry and the role as a whole, is really growing. It really started at its infancy back in the mid-2000s for enterprise SaaS organizations. What we're seeing in the market today, it's really evolving. So sales enablement early on there was a lot more of a tactical focus, and now it's moving to more of a strategic focus, which is really valuable. So, and that's
what does that look like inside a company? A tactical focus. What does that look like and feel like versus a strategic focus?
Yeah. So from a tactical perspective, folks that potentially are new at the roles, they may be more task oriented, where they are fixing problems that the organization may be potentially discovering, like, hey, we need this piece of content for the sales reps, or we need this training document for our training and coaching program, or we need this onboarding tool for such and such. So it's very much a one-off, and it's tactically focused. So and the challenge with that is really the sales enablement role in itself should be vital in supporting the C-suite. And so the C-level executives, the growth officers, as well as the SVPs of sales and other areas, where they can think very strategically to help work with them and support their efforts to really grow revenue for the organization. And the strength we're seeing in sales enablement is that cross-functional alignment between sales, marketing, customer success, where you're really driving that revenue growth initiatives, and you're not working in silos, but you're very much focused working together. So in essence, you're like an orchestrator in sales enablement.
I'm glad you brought that up. So let's bring it up to that level, and let's get real. What are the biggest challenges facing chief revenue officers and VPs of sales today?
Well, I think there's a number of them. From the perspective of, as we all know, the buyer is dramatically shifting and changing over time, right? It's more difficult to keep up with the buyer. So more than ever before, companies have to have a very customer-centered approach to really understand the core buyer's needs and even potential unperceived needs. So it's really important to have a very customer-centered approach, as well as we know in sales. Let's face it, technology, digital is a strong component to sales today. How do you keep up with that? As well, how do you really differentiate in the market? Because more than ever before, the buyer has the information at their fingertips. And today, you really, truly need to differentiate yourself from others in the industry so you don't fall in that commodity trap, right? As I like to use a term that was actually created by another individual, Scott Santucci, but I'll use it. I love the term productivitis. We've all learned to focus very heavily on products or services we sell, but let's face it, the buyer doesn't care about. They care about their core challenge and need, and how you can align value to that core challenge and need, and then comes your product and service. So I think today more than ever before, and even in the world of this pandemic, value is more important than ever before to differentiate yourself and provide true value with unconsidered needs, insights, and other core areas and assets.
So let's talk about getting that value out to the market. One of the areas that I've seen you speak at conferences is messaging. And that's translating that value and operationalizing that value in your sales organization. So what is the role of messaging in a modern sales team?
Great question, Josh. It's really, I see messaging falls in line from the very beginning stages of prospecting all the way through the initial sale to the whole evolution of customer success, right? Upsell, cross-sell, whether your organization has your sales team cross-selling, upselling, or you have your customer success team or others cross-selling, upselling, it's vital. And the messaging, again, really needs to lead from a position of value, not product, because again, that differentiates you and it really positions you very well from that advisory consultative approach where you're sitting on the same side of the table with the customer, not the opposite side of the table. You're there to help them solve their problems. That, of course, and aligns eventually leads to your solution, product, service, so to speak. So the message is vital. And also the message is vital because sales enablement, we talk about sales enablement. Here's a perfect example. One message you can incorporate into a whole sales enablement strategy. So as an example, if we look at the different pillars of sales enablement, and it's all dependent upon your organization. One pillar could be sales process methodology. Two could be training and coaching. Three could be content, that's internal content. External content. Four is messaging. Five could be technology, and six could be the analytics and data. So take that one sales message and where you're flipping it from a product-focused message to a value-focused message. You maybe start with unconsidered needs, provide valuable insights in that message. You could take that message, you could then, once you create that messaging strategy and structure, you then can incorporate that into external content that you're going to incorporate, of course, in the sales message that the sales reps can provide. So that would be internal content to coach and train the reps, which is really vital. And sometimes the steps some companies miss. Just because you deliver a message, you really need to support the sales team the best way to deliver the message and how to have the conversation and when to implement it. So that can come from a training and coaching perspective, where you align that content and the message at different stages of your sales cycle based upon very specific to the roles you're speaking to. Of course, it falls into your messaging strategy and structure and how you integrate it based upon your sales process, CRM, sales enablement application from a technology perspective, and how you can measure all that message. Does that message help create net new revenue? Does that message help from a cross-sell, upsell perspective? You can measure that. So it can be vitally effective. One message is how you can incorporate it into a sales strategy, sales enablement strategy and program.
So how do you coach sales leaders at an organization to find that balance between a product focus and a value focus or a solution or an outcome focus?
We very much focus from, first, we very much take a look at what they're currently doing, what they're currently providing, them value messaging structure. Then we work collectively with them to come up with unique messages based upon how they differentiate themselves in the market and from a value-based perspective. And we do this a variety of ways. We have, we do workshops, we do training and coaching around the messaging structure, and we have tools, technologies, and frameworks and system. But it's different than just creating a message for them and leaving. We help guide them through the whole process. So what we like to see and really valuable to the senior, the SVPs of sales, other folks, C-suite, is that the message is really incorporated from a value perspective throughout their sales process. We like to call it win with value. And how they incorporate it into their sales process and methodology, where the reps are now leading all those conversations from a position of value.
So you have a very specific framework that you use in developing
Yes.
messaging.
Yes.
dig a little bit deeper and walk us through it, still at a high level, but
Yes.
break down the blocks.
So real quickly, like as a starting place, we have that based upon the different stages, and it's definitely very formed to your sales process and your methodology. So it's not a cookie cutter approach. We align it based upon the needs of our client. But I'll just take an example. Let's say your first stage of your sales cycle methodology maybe be you want to really articulate value to that prospect and customer. So we help you define very specifically that customer-centered approach, working backwards from the customer to define those specific roles you're selling to in the organization, then structure that value-based message. As an example, in beginning conversations at the beginning stages, maybe your first meeting, you may focus on unconsidered needs and valuable outcomes for that organization. So we help you structure that message and that through our framework and system, so we can create that message and then you can deliver upon that message. So again, we can give guidance to coaching and training the reps how to deliver if that needs to be the case. But it's a foolproof process where at the end of the day, we're all about driving outcomes for you where you can increase revenue for your organization. And that's what the messaging strategy structure. But then again, to incorporate it in different stages of the sales cycle. Again, cross-sell, upsell, how to help close deals, and a really strong message. And the value you provide, the value to that is the fact that you don't always have to compete on the price conversation. If you're providing value, you're alleviating yourself from the commodity trap if it's done the right way. And then they see you really more from that thought leadership, value-based perspective. And you are really starting to differentiate you from your competitors.
There's a lot there. It is an intense process. I've seen you implemented it at dozens of companies, and it's flexible, it's custom, but it's effective in getting that messaging to be consistent with your sales team. And
we try to do it definitely in a manner where it's simplified. So again, based upon the organization, what we're doing, really the end goal again is just not come and create the message. The end goal is to create the outcome where the message actually differentiates you, increases revenue and sales for your organization. So that's what we're looking to do. And so we do take folks through try to keep it as a simplified process and system to do that.
So what do people get wrong the most about developing sales messaging?
I think the difficulty is, and we're all human beings, we've all been trained to do that, is to move the mind shift from a product focus, a service focus, conversation, a corporation focused conversation starting point to a value focused conversation starting point, and always leading from that perspective. Because once you do that, it changes your mindset from a whole perspective, the way you sell. And sales reps really like this because there's very much positioning them more from a value-based perspective where they see them more advisory, more consultative, and it changes the way they have conversations and they actually sell.
So if I have a sales team of 25 salespeople, how difficult is it to get everyone on the same page in terms of messaging?
Well, it's, you have, everyone's different in the organization from a sales perspective. But if you have, the key thing to get the buy-in on a sales message is to have the right processes and systems in place and guidance to take the folks through the process where they clearly understand the value of it. The messaging strategy and structure, it's like anything. Some people are going to adapt more to it quickly than others, but I've seen in organizations where high majority will really adapt to this because also they'll see where their colleagues are getting quick wins that they may not have gotten beforehand. So it's taking them through the process. You're not going to take all 25 reps are not going to automatically effectively use it right away. It's like anything, right? A sales process, a method, whatever you do. But on the back end, we have a process and system to help support you to get the other reps on board and help them see results that they can actually get from doing this that aren't using it as much. So it is it's a foolproof system to get Not only the initial reps that are using it from day one, but the other reps to begin utilizing it effectively for them.
So I was having a conversation the other day with a VP of sales, and she has their messaging down. They've gone through that process. But the part where they're struggling is operationalizing that messaging into a selling system so that all the reps can follow it. What advice would you have for her if she's listening today?
I would say several key things is number one, also where your sales reps, you make sure you have it structured and aligned from an enablement perspective. So again, if you're going to get buy-in to implement these effective messages you create, make sure it's effectively aligned to your sales methodology. So you're providing those skills and knowledge and expertise the reps need to be effectively delivered on. Make sure it's effectively aligned to your training and coaching program. Again, make sure that sales managers, a lot of times organizations have a tendency, no fault of their own, skip the sales managers and go directly to the reps. We really need to enable the reps, enable the managers, the sales managers, based upon the messages to effectively enable the reps. So that approach is important. Also, how you're going to incorporate with your overall sales process and methodology. Make sure the message is very targeted to specific roles you're speaking to in an organization. We all know if you're an enterprise sale, you could be talking to 7 to 10 different roles within an organization, and you may have to tweak that message. But to get buy-in, you have to have a structured program, and then make sure you have guidance where someone is effectively coaching the reps through the process to the value of it. And so there's many different ways to do that, but that's vitally important.
So when messaging shifts, market changes, new products rolled out, what's the best way to get the word out to your sales team in a way that sticks?
When the market shifts as a whole?
When your messaging shifts, when you have new messaging.
The best way to do it from a messaging perspective. So what you do is, as you create very targeted messages, you have well, number one, what you want to do is, if you do have sales managers, bring them to the table to make the reps aware that we have a new messaging construct that we're implementing as example for this specific product offering. This is where you can get the knowledge-based component. We're going to coach you through this process, but also we have a training component. So make sure that content resides from a training perspective. Also make sure that you have the content up to date. So if you have external customer-facing content, what's that going to be? Make sure the message is effectively allocated there, and that the reps can easily access that information. And of course, the internal content goes back to the training and coaching. And also, you could, again, incorporating sales processes, methodologies, and even technologies like CRM systems, like HubSpots of the world, or our Membrane of the world, or Salesforce, whatever it may be. You can actually incorporate that content and that messaging structure based upon different stages of the sales cycle. You can also incorporate the sales messaging structure. I would say vitally important playbooks. Have a sales messaging playbook, how you can implement on when your messaging changes, and how the reps can easily access that information based upon where they are in the sales cycle, who they're speaking to is vital. So it's really that alignment piece, but you build a strategy and framework around that. And once you really do that, once you begin to see it, it builds a lot of clarity where sales reps aren't second guessing. They're actually excited because the right message provides value to them, again, as an advisor, consultant, and they can easily access that information they need. And that's really important.
I like the way that you break it down in a really actionable way. So what is the role of messaging in the onboarding process, and how can you get sales reps ramped up faster?
Really important. I'm glad you brought that up. So as we know, onboarding, we're trying to get reps up to speed very quickly. So, and of course that goes to your foundational elements of what your sales program is, your sales methodology, what your process is, core competencies of industries in the market. If you, very early on in the onboarding program, if you are taking on a new messaging program, and as example, if you're leading from a position of value-based messaging structure, you want to make sure that the reps are effectively aligned to what those core messages are, the why to the message, why we're doing this, the value we're providing, how we're effectively positioning you into the market to get that buy-in and knowledge base. But I also say the important thing, again, is to have those messaging playbooks. But you could have an onboarding messaging playbook, and a playbook is not really I know we've used in the past, like a PDF with a lot of words. It's actually very little words. It's video, it's interactive. You can build challenges for the reps where they can coach them, where they're testing based upon the message. You're training and coaching. And in the onboarding process, bring the coaches in, the sales manager, the coaches in early to help support their efforts. So at that foundational piece, they very much understand the value they're providing to the industry and the specific roles in the organization. So as they quickly move to market to begin selling, let's say field reps or inside reps, they know how to structure the conversation from a value-based perspective.
Now that's good. Onboarding is key. You only have a short window of time to get people buying into your system, buying into your messaging, knowing that this is a place that they can be successful. And it starts from the top and conveying that.
It really does.
That message. So let's talk about reinforcing messaging over time. How do you monitor and reinforce sales messaging?
So several different ways you can go about this. So number one, from the monitoring perspective, you can monitor messaging based upon, like, for instance, several different ways. So if you're recording sales calls, like as example, potentially using a Gong.io of the world or another Chorus AI or other tools, are they listening to the sales reps? Are they effectively delivering on the message itself? Are they using the content you created the messaging in? That could be emails. Are they sending that? You may have email system and templates you're putting together with effective. Are they using that? Are they using the content you're providing them? Then on the coaching side, are the sales managers, as they go through the process with the reps and they're enabling them, they're going to be able to identify the strengths and areas that the reps may need to improve on and help get them there, but have a clearer understanding of what the adoption rate and what they need to do to provide the skill sets for the sales reps to be highly effective around the messaging strategy and construct, so to speak. So it's really important to analyze from those different core areas as well. You can create a challenge, as I mentioned earlier, for reps, so they could record a message. You could listen to that and provide that feedback loop. Again, the sales managers, there's a variety of different perspectives to do that. But also it effectively, if it's going into your sales process, going into your methodology, if you have a strong messaging program, you should be able to measure against that potentially like net new revenue, right? Close won deals, there's many different KPIs, and is the messaging effectively providing value there? And you'll know the reps who are doing well with that and the ones that may need some more support and help, so to speak. So there's a variety of ways to do that.
I'm glad that you, in terms of optimizing messaging, you brought up kind of that closed loop reporting to be able to identify what marketing messaging and sales messaging is delivering revenue. Also,
you bring up an important point. Just one thing, Josh, is marketing. The key thing with messaging, I know many different organizations just focus on their own departments, but it's very important to bring marketing to the table as you even begin a sales messaging construct. It can start from the sales side, but then you align to the marketing side what you're doing. And marketing, I've seen teams where we've worked with that cross-functional alignment piece actually provides value to marketing from that end of the spectrum. So it could be product marketing, it could just be demand gen, it could be marketing as a whole, but how you do that and implement on that. And then you're coming to that North Star, so to speak, where there's commonality to work together, which is vital.
So you talked about giving feedback to the sales reps. How does feedback from your sales team fit into optimizing messaging over time?
Well, it's vitally important. So you really want to know, you want to have that, you talked about the closed loop system. That closed loop system part is getting that feedback from the reps that where they're finding the message is resonating or where the messaging may need to be adjusted or improved from what you're currently doing. Does it resonate with the potential buyers, so to speak? Are the sales reps finding it useful and how they're selling? Or as example, are they find that the messaging that the sales reps are highly effective with the sales messaging program? They should be, if they're highly effective at that, they should move away more from an every single conversation around price. It's more of a conversation around value. So if they're finding, you're going to see sales reps that are very good at this, where you may retain your pricing structures with greater margins than in other areas. So there's different forms, but you want to get the feedback from the reps and start that early on. So again, in even the onboarding stages, to the coaching sessions with the sales managers and what they're seeing in the market. Because again, reps may, as example, may say, I'm selling in this industry for the last year and a half. We've been selling, focusing on this 6 roles within this type of organization. And now we've identified 2 new roles. Well, your sales messaging may need to change. How do you do that, right? So having that feedback loop, and again, it's really a 2-way street. It's not a 1-way street. So when I say 2-way, it's a very collaborative process where you're working collectively together with the reps. It's like having an enablement team. You're supporting them. They have the buy-in to how it can work well for them and provide value to the client. And it's really having that feedback loop, so to speak.
Yep. We find that having both qualitative and quantitative, we call them optimization loops, is key. You're not going to get the full story without all of it.
Right. Vital. Totally agree.
Well, this has been an absolutely great conversation around sales management and sales messaging. Where can listeners find you online and learn more about your framework?
Yeah, so my company's name is Brand Fusion, and that is, of course, like a brand, and fusion spelled a little bit differently. It's F-U-Z as in zebra, ION.com, brandfusion.com, where they can learn more about my organization and how we support sales teams, so to speak.
Well, thank you, Walter Pollard. Do you have any final sales management advice for our listeners?
Sales management advice, I would say, so I think the key thing is, when I go back and look at sales enablement and sales managers and effectively managing reps, I think the key component is think about your sales managers, how you can effectively enable them first to effectively enable the reps. A lot of times we all have a tendency to take for granted that the sales managers have all the tools in the box, so to speak, but sometimes they don't, and they have to move very quickly. The more we can build enablement programs for the sales managers to be effective, and they're really good at doing the job, they're going to be highly effective, providing more value to the sales reps. And in turn, you're going to increase revenue for your organization.
That is my favorite takeaway from this discussion. And
fantastic.
So that does it for this episode of the Modern Sales Management Show. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.